Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody, and welcome to Pangolin, the Conservation Podcast, the show dedicated to exploring and amplifying the world's underappreciated conservation stories. The stories that inspire me, and I hope will inspire you too. I'm your host, Jack Baker, and today I am joined by the amazing Lizzie Seymour, the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland's Learning Technology Officer. We discuss what learning technology actually is, how she is integrating it into the zoo, and how during the COVID-19 pandemic she managed to pull together a fantastic conservation education platform, ZOOdle. For the unusual animal fans out there, we also make sure and discuss her favourite underappreciated species, penguins and gibbons. So, if you've ever wanted to hear a gibbons song, make sure and stay tuned. And on that note, oh, there's a singing pun for you. On that note, let's get started. Welcome back to the show. I am now joined by the lovely Lizzie Seymour from the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland, who's here to tell us all about their learning website ZOOdle and her work as a learning technologist. And I'm sure we'll go down many other tangents as well. But first of all, thank you so much for joining me today, Lizzie.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yes, I think it's only a matter of time. It was only a matter of time before you ended up on the show. So it's very nice to finally have you here. I wondered, to get us started, if you could introduce yourself to the listeners and just tell them a little bit about who you are, what your background is, what is it you do?
Yeah, sure. I'm Lizzie Seymour. I'm the Learning Technology Officer for the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland. So that's the wildlife conservation charity which owns and runs Edinburgh Zoo, where I'm based most of the time, and the Highland Wildlife Park, which I'm lucky enough to go up to occasionally for work, which is just amazing. My pronouns are she, her. And yeah, I've been working for the zoo for nearly 5 years in summer.
That's mad. I feel like it's strange because you must have started just a learning. We'll go into what learning technologists do, but you started probably just as the zoo really needed one to come in and take everything online. So that's a good timeline to have been there, and probably a very interesting 5 years we'll have to discuss.
Yeah, I got some time to get my feet under the table, but it's been a roller coaster.
Yep. I wondered, before we go off and talk about the last 5 years, you mentioned there you're the learning technology officer. Could you just explain a little bit? I know, because I also, learning technology is what I do at the Botanic Gardens where I work. But for people out there who, I've maybe said that before and they've looked at me like, yes, and kind of thought that they maybe knew what I was talking about. Could you just explain what a learning technologist or a learning technology officer does?
Yes, so a learning technologist's role is to enhance teaching and learning, the experience of both through the use of digital technology. So that can be a hugely varied role. It can be simply supporting the sort of digital learning environments that people use in universities. It can go out into using smart boards and virtual reality in classrooms. I dabble in quite a lot of graphic design in this role as well. And no 2 days are the same being a learning technologist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine, and I like, you seem to have a very varied role. And given there's just one of you, it's very impressive because I should say, at the Botanics there's a team of us, and we still kind of have this. We have one website to manage. You have one website to manage, and you do it all by yourself. So yes, a very varied role where I can imagine no 2 days are the same.
Yes, and where you say there's only one of me, there is only one of me at the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland, but I am the only learning technology officer or learning technologist in a zoo in the UK. There's only one other in Europe, so it is a very niche role in this field.
That's so That's very, it's very bizarre to me, because you'd think, especially after the last few years, zoos would be going, we need specialists to come in and do this sort of stuff with the graphic design and everything, because education officers are great at talking to people, but might not necessarily know the technology behind it. So that's really interesting, actually. And
Yeah,
I'm shocked by
yeah.
that.
I think after the last couple of years, people don't seem to have the budget for specialists quite so much as they did. So we are
Mhm.
seeing many more job posts come out in the field that are sort of education officer roles with a specialism in technology. But there's still
Mhm.
nobody that's like a dedicated learning technologist yet. It would be
Mhm.
nice to have a friend, someone to bounce ideas off of. But it's quite fun. I kind of end up going to all the ZOOE conferences and all the learning technology conferences as well, and trying to mash them together in my head.
Yes, that must be, yeah, not the easiest, but also very, very interesting, and actually leads me on very well to the next question I wanted to ask you, which was why the zoo, why RZSS for you? Because if there's only one role, especially now, I'm intrigued to hear this answer. What made it you want to work for a zoo opposed to a university or a school where you'd more likely find a learning technologist?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a story, I guess. When I was very little, I can remember like my first drawing that I can like clearly remember. So I was like 3 or 4. I sat down and I drew myself, and I had hair down to my knees because obviously it was going to grow out forever. And I worked with elephants, and this was the drawing of like my future. So I've always kind of been interested in doing something with animals. I fell into being a learning technologist in my degree at university. I was on a sandwich course where you do 2 years and then a year out in industry, and then you do your final year of university. And the university was looking for a learning technologist for their medical school.
Hmm.
So I did that in my sandwich year, and then I went back to it after a little while. Had some time out in email marketing, and I went back to it. So I was working there, and we came up just for a holiday to Edinburgh, me and my partner, in 2015. We went to the zoo to see the pandas. Only zoo in the UK that have pandas. So we went to see those, and we fell in love with the zoo. We fell in love with the city, and we thought, what a lovely place it would be to live. And then 2 years later, on the Association of Learning Technologists newsletter that you get once a week, they had a job advertised in Edinburgh Zoo, and I thought, well, I'm going to apply. They're going to say no. It'll be fine. And they said yes. And at the time, we were living in Plymouth, so we had to move 600 miles. But I've never looked back. I absolutely love it.
Hmm. That's amazing. Like it's a once in a lifetime. Now that I know there's only one of one of you, that is a really once in a lifetime type thing. Where I think I'd be the same. I think even if I was the most qualified person for the job, when they phoned me and said you've got it or whatever, I'd be like, "Are you sure? Is that really? Is it really me? Like
Yeah.
that's fantastic."
So at the head of our department, the department I work in is called Discovery and Learning. So it's the
Hmm.
education side of the zoo. And the head of Discovery and Learning at the time when I was hired is now the head of your department, I
Yep.
believe. And she herself comes from a learning technology background in universities, and was super keen to sort of implement some of the things that she'd seen at unis in her new role at the zoo, but didn't have the time to do it herself. So she managed to find the budget to get someone to do it for her. And I do feel incredibly lucky. It's been kind of my sort of pet mission since I started, to prove that like technology can help connect people with nature, because everybody always
Mhm.
thinks that the kids are playing on their games consoles and never seeing a tree. And so trying to combine the two to make a really powerful relationship is kind of what I've been trying to do and trying to prove can work.
Mhm. And I think that's, yeah, it's because it starts, I guess, with, and the argument is kind of made by things like documentaries and things where people watch them and engage, but I suppose they're kind of a one-way transfer of information. You don't really get the interactive element. So having someone who sits and creates activities and kind of digital things that people can actually really get hold of and play around with, it's, yeah, it's interesting to see kind of, yes, it's a really good ethos to have. I think it's really, really interesting.
Yeah,
um
because you've got that element with technology as well of the new shiny, and they're just like, oh, let's play with the new toy. And if you're playing with the new toy to learn something valuable, then I think that's a win-win-win.
mhm. That's always been my thing, is that conservation's so interesting, but some of the ways that it's written about and some of the things that it kind of is presented are just not accessible to certain audiences, because you hand a child maybe a a zoology textbook and go, you'll love this, they're going to look at you like you're a mad person. But if you give them a game that they can play for 5 minutes and then kind of interact, then yeah, it's really, really probably
Yeah.
much more successful.
You're speaking to someone who spent a childhood trying to trap guests in the penguin enclosure in Zoo Tycoon. So,
Yeah, I do. I mentioned that in our Meet the Team episode of Rizoo, the zoo review podcast. I don't know why I named it that. It's such a tongue twister. The zoo review podcast, Rizoo. I mentioned my Zoo Tycoon obsession, and I think that's maybe where a lot of people who work in zoos it started. It kind of it
I
really
think
got
so.
stuck in our heads of that, and it actually is a case in point because I would play that a lot, and now look where I've ended up. So I think, you're on the money with the engaging with nature thing.
Yeah, we just need to make our own more educational version of it and make a fortune. Win.
Yeah, that's the one. But yes, I suppose mentioning Rizoo, we're speaking of good zoo puns. It's all adding up. We've talked about a bad zoo pun. Yours is much better than mine.
Well,
It makes me laugh. So zoo puns, and learning technology and creating these kind of things. You put all of those ideas together and created ZOOdle, which is the zoo's kind of learning learning website. It's got all sorts of different activities, and I wondered where did that start? When you were hired to be the only person working in a zoo on learning technology kind of side, where do you start with that? How did that journey begin?
yeah, so when I started, the society already had a website which is based off a technology called Moodle, which is the pun I think that you were referring to for those that don't
Yes.
know it. So Moodle is a sort of an online course platform, I guess. It's a digital learning environment for the DLE. And it's used by a huge amount of colleges and universities in the UK. It's rarer to find it outside, but we are two examples of outside colleges and universities that use Moodle. And we already had it when I started. We had an outreach program which would go out to schools across Scotland, called Wild About Scotland. And they'd paid for a Moodle to be set up so that they could have resources for the teachers to use when they weren't there to continue on that learning. But it hadn't been touched in several years, so both the content and the website itself was out of date. So when I started, it was one of the jobs that I had to take over that old site to give it a refresh and improve the content of it. It took us an embarrassingly long amount of time to think of the pun Zoodle. It was 2 or 3 years before we were just like, hang on.
It's the double O. It's so obvious. It's
I know. But we have trademarked it now. It's ours. I was very excited the day that I got the email from the trademark office. I went through the whole website putting TM after it everywhere. So it's our name now. So what I did with the website that we had, that I sort of inherited, I guess, from Wild About Scotland, because that project shut down not long after I started as well. And we were left with the Moodle site. So we started by trying to set it up as a resource for schools again, for the teachers. So they would bring a class into the zoo and have sort of an hour session with one of our fantastic education officers. And then they'd have a day out in the zoo with their class. And that would be it. They'd never have anything to do with the zoo again. So we were trying to add what we call pre and post activities. So those teachers would have something that they could do with the class on the theme of whatever they were coming to the zoo with before they came. And we could also get a little bit of sort of data about them out of it. So we would know what they knew before they came and personalise the sessions so that they'd be a little bit more special and fitting what they needed to know. And then again, there'd be resources, worksheets and things that the teachers could use with their class afterwards to continue on that learning. So that's what we did with our old Moodle. And then we were planning to give it an update, give it a refresh, also move it in-house so that it would be entirely managed by me, not partly me and partly a company we were paying. And we were planning to do that we sort of put the plans in motion in 2019, and June 2020 was our cutoff date. And I'm sure you all know what June 2020 means.
It's, as soon as someone says it, there's just like this trigger in my mind of like, oh no.
Oh yeah.
Oh, no.
So March 2020 hit and Scotland went into lockdown, and we have a department of, I think, about 16 or so core members of staff, going up to about 26 with seasonals and weekend staff. And we and all of the team except for myself and our head of department were placed on furlough in that first lockdown. And so we were working with sort of the more engagement and social media kind of teams as well. So it was really, really nice that everyone sort of pitched in together in that time. But for some reason, we gave ourselves the punishing schedule of developing and releasing a new course on a new topic every single week in lockdown. And so where before we'd aimed at teachers doing things with their class, we just did a pivot 180 overnight and changed our content to be aimed at families learning together from home. So we had resources that kids could just, a parent could give an iPad to a kid and they'd go off for half an hour while the parent had a phone call. But the idea was more that parents would sit down with their kids and they could both get something out of it. So we did all of that, and then we still had that June 2020 cutoff date for the new website. So we finally caved in and we put a month-long Wild June, which had 30 challenges for 30 days. And that gave us 30 days to set up the new website. So our Moodle then became ZOOdle, and it is roughly what it looks like today.
Yeah, you didn't make it easy at a time that was already stressful and not easy. You really didn't set the. A lot of people would have aimed low and thought maybe a new course a month. We'll aim for kind of one course, but once a week. And when you go on there now, it really is. You can see the effort that's been put in because there's huge banks of different stuff, different age groups, all sorts of things, different levels of challenge, all sorts of different stuff. And so I think it all kind of paid off in the end. And I think it maybe was hard work at the time, but looking back on it, I suppose, are you happy with, like, do you look back really proud of it now that you've kind of have come over that mound of the first lockdown?
I was really proud of it at the time. There were, nights in that month of June where I was wondering what we'd done, but I was really proud of it at the time, and I still am now. In fact, when Scotland went into the second lockdown in January 2021, we did that same weekly release schedule again because it was popular, but it was also just really nice to try and be able to help the community, because we're a charity. We were asking our community, the families of Edinburgh and beyond, to basically pay to feed our animals while we were closed and we didn't have any visitors. And so we were giving these resources, and they're all completely free. Anyone in the world can access them for free. And so it was part of our way of saying thank you to these people for just rallying around and supporting us. So in January 2021, I must say we did have more people, but we did keep up the weekly releases, and out of that we had over 35 different topics. With I've got 178 resources written down on my notes. So each week we would have a different topic. So for instance, one week I think the most popular one was we had Waddle This Way, which was a course all about penguins. And
Another great pun.
That's what we're about now.
Yep.
And so we had sort of 7 or 8 different activities that kids can do on their own and families can do together about penguins. And yeah, we had 35 different animals or topics, sustainability and topics like that as well.
That's fantastic. And what kind of those are the kind of topics, and there's a huge amount of stuff on there. What if someone was to go on to ZOOdle, when you go in, what types of stuff have you been developing? What kind of games, what sort of things are there for the families to kind of do?
Yeah, so the website itself is split into 4 sections. We have the family resources, which I mentioned, and those have a combination of different types of resources. We deliberately set out to do that. So each one has at least a video on the topic by one of our experts, or we have some that are for nursery, so they're really cute little songs that they can sing along with, but it still counts as a video. So they have to have a video. They've got something online that's interactive. So we've got games. I'm particularly one of my sort of hobbies at work, is that a thing, is making really, really difficult spot the differences.
Can I tell you something actually about one of the games?
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't admit this, and anyone from my work is going to probably be angry, but during one of my during the learning technology team meeting that we have every week, we sat and we did the panda flip card game. Yes. So it wasn't a spot the difference, but it took us far too long. Given I was sat there, I was like, I have worked in the zoo. I know this. We'll get through this. It took us so long. So I can see it's not just the spot the differences that are challenging. It can be, even for experts like me, I was like, come on, I'm letting myself down here, and
But
we
you'll
got
be
there in the
amazed
end.
how much the kids know. Like
Yeah.
it's puzzling for the adults, even the adults that work here, but the kids will know it. It's
Mhm.
amazing. So yeah, we've got all sorts of games, flip cards, drag and drop games,
Mhm.
interactives. And then we've got resources that try and encourage people to go outside, because most of these were made in the pandemic. And we had the thought of trying to help people stay connected with nature at a time when the government are telling them to stay indoors. So obviously we're not telling people to break lockdown, but we're trying to help people feel like they're still part of the world outside.
Mhm.
So we had ideas of, planting for window boxes, things to look out for when you're going out on your hour daily walk, little activities to see if you can jump as far as a wildcat and things like that. So those things to get you offline. There are printable things as well, because parents don't always want their kids just staring at an iPad screen. So for those people that do have printers at home, there are models that people can print off and kind of put together with Pritt Stick and make their own little giraffe to have on their desk at home and things like that. Then there are sort of more formal, it's not really the right word, but less game-based education online as well.
Mhm.
So sort of quizzes and interactions like that as well.
Mhm. They're really good. I like I think one of my favorites, and I'd gone on today just to refresh my memory, and some of the ones that really, I love the ones where you kind of have put the camera, the 360 camera. I don't know how you do it. I want to work it out to use at the botanics because it's very clever. But you put the camera in an enclosure and you see, basically, if you were the animal, you see what it sees and kind of all of it different. The one with the meerkats was the one that stood out, and it's just come right up to the camera and is like looking. I love those. Those are my, I like, and so you can see if you're a parent sitting at home, maybe going, "Oh, like this will be good for the kids, but I'll probably not get much out of it." I'm probably not the target audience for some of these things, but I really enjoy them. So get on
Oh,
there and
that's
have
so
a look.
lovely to hear. Thank you. So yeah, we had, as I said, there were 4 sections. So there's the
Mhm,
family one, which is, I think it's got the most content. It's all
mhm,
entirely free, and please, everyone, do feel free to go and have a look and learn something about penguins for 5
mhm,
minutes. Um, there's the teacher section. We do still have that, the pre and post activities. We've moved all during the pandemic, at least we moved all of our sort of in-person teaching to virtual workshops.
mhm,
And we set up like a suite. So we had virtual tours. We could take schools actually behind the scenes, which we wouldn't have been able to do if we'd had them physically with us. So that was quite
mhm,
nice. They could go sort of in with the penguins and things like that. And so we had a whole load of resources on ZOOdle to support those virtual tours that we were doing. And we also have an adult section, which is that sounds ruder than I meant. A section for adults. There's a section for adults on ZOOdle, which is aimed at those sort of older learners. So we have courses that are designed to just take 5 minutes and are a little bit maybe more in detail. And the idea was that people could do it on their lunch break or whatever, when you just needed to clear your head in the middle of crazy pandemic times. You can take 5 minutes out and learn about the giant pandas, and learn more than you knew was possible about them, because they're really in depth. And we also have a couple of paid for courses under that section. A fantastic one, which is actually award winning, is Zoo Studies, and it is looking at animal behaviour. So it's an entirely remote week-long course using the webcams that the zoo has, and you can study our animals on the live webcams, and that teaches you all of these things on there. And then the final section is what we call Explore. It's a little bit of a miscellaneous, put anything that doesn't quite fit in there. But the idea of it was to support events that we might have on site. So we had a Halloween trail this year for the first year ever at both sites actually as well, which was really exciting. And we did a slightly educational, but a trick or treat online. So they would find the QR codes around the sites and give them a scan, and then go to ZOOdle, and they'd get like a tiger template for carving on a pumpkin and some facts about tigers or something like that. So Halloweeny and educational, and it really made my day when somebody actually did carve the tiger onto their pumpkin and shared it on Twitter. I was glowing all day.
That's the I have to stick to smiley faces because anything more complicated, it just goes too much of a disaster too quick. So if someone does it successfully, I'm always very impressed.
Yeah.
And yeah, really clever. I think integrating the kind of the technology into people's lives so seamlessly, and that when people come to the zoo, they always have their phone because they'll be taking pictures of the animals or they do whatever. And so integrating it like that as well is really, really interesting. Really, really interesting.
Yeah, and that's what we did with like once we reopened after the lockdowns, we couldn't, and actually currently as things stand still can't have our keeper talks, because it encourages people to stand in close together groups so that they can hear someone, unrelated household groups or whatever. So they're currently on hold, talks with the keepers. And so what I did, as soon as we were allowed back on site, was get out there and record. I think we've got about 8 or 9, we call them discovery videos, and they're basically the same content as the keeper talks, and we've put QR codes in the places where the talks used to take place, where people would gather, so you can sort of have a keeper talk on demand now.
That's really clever. I mean, I still have the problem because I love all the animals. I'll find myself talking to complete strangers about, like, I'm pretty much giving a talk about the animals. But if I'm not there and there's not a keeper there or there's no one to ask, that is an excellent idea.
ZOOdle is there for you.
Yeah. It's a brilliant, brilliant backup. And it's something else that you mentioned that I'm going to look back on because I think it's a good point. I can highlight another episode I did with a member of our ZSS. Was I talked to the lovely Jasper from the Highland Wildlife Park. And I remember very clearly, so if you want to learn more about what he does, we have an episode with him. But the reason he's come into my head is because when you were talking about doing the tours with the kids online, Inside the Zoo, which is a TV series about the Highland Wildlife Park and the Edinburgh Zoo, one of the standout scenes of that in my head is one of the bits about learning technology, which is when Jasper is talking about the polar bears to the kids on the thing. And I love the fact that they left in the TV show was him telling the kids that a polar bear eats the equivalent of about your body weight in a day, which really made
it relatable.
Yeah.
The funniest, that's one of my funniest stories out of the lockdown, I think, was working with Jasper on those, because part of my role as learning technologist is to help the teachers get comfortable with the technology that we're using. It's kind of staff development or almost, and so and the virtual tours, and so I kind of had to set up how they were going to work, technologically. Is that word? And understandably, because it's very different from talking to a class, a lot of our staff were quite nervous on their first go. And on Jasper's first time, he asked if I would be in the background, just giving a hand if his internet dropped out, because we didn't even know how good the signal was going to be up there in the Highland Wildlife Park, because it's in the middle of the Cairngorms National Park. And so I was online at home, watching him do this stream, and he had his iPad in one hand, and we were just getting set up before the class joined. And Jasper was incredibly lucky that the keepers had given him this bucket of some sort of meat that he was allowed to throw over to the polar bears to get them to come over for this video. And he was just getting ready and getting the meat out of his car that he just put into the and the place where he was feeding these polar bears is just inside our drive-through reserve, so there's a lot of animals kind of roaming around this area. And Jasper turned around at one point and there was a bison staring at him, and it was just like, it was full staring him down, and I was really nervous about this thing. And so what we did was we had Jasper join the call on his phone as well, popped it on his car, and I was keeping an eye on the bison while he was talking to the class, and he managed to throw the meat over the fence before the bison, like, I won't say charged, but it wasn't a walk towards him. And so Jasper lobbed this meat over the fence and jumped in his car. I was like, go. And he did the rest of the talk to the class from his car, looking at the polar bears through the car window. So professional, they would not have known what was happening. But I was at home thinking, Jasper's going to die and I can't help.
That's a kind of unique experience you might get if you sign up for one of the online classes. I have to admit, every time we go to the Highland Wildlife Park with my family, the bison even when we're in a car, make my dad twitchy, because I think he is like, if one of these comes at my car, it's gonna significantly dent it.
They are large.
It's probably not gonna happen. But yeah, I can imagine when you're stood there out in the open and you've got, if it's not happy with you, you don't want to be out of the car.
But yeah, ever the professional, I don't think the school knew a thing that was happening.
That's fantastic. I wish that had been the time they'd been recording for Inside the Zoo, just to see all the cameras start shaking with nerves of like, oh no.
Yes, definitely.
hmm That's fantastic. But yes, so before we just talk about all sorts of
Sorry.
hilarious stuff, we should probably,
Blooper
I'll
reels.
try and ask some not serious questions, but like the questions I've written down before I just ask
Yeah.
about funny stories that have happened. Uh, so I think one of the questions I wanted to ask, we've heard there's so many different activities on there, and obviously a zoo in real life appeals to so many different people. Did you find that when you were kind of putting this stuff online, you were attracting even more people? Was it different audiences? Like, what kind of people were coming to the site? Do you like, yeah?
Yeah, so particularly during lockdown, our numbers were huge coming to the site.
Mm-hmm.
I've written them down. Here we go. Yeah, during the sort of the first pandemic, the first lockdown that we had, sorry, we had 43,000 families visiting the site. So we don't capture any personal data because it's completely open and free. Most Moodles require you to log on. We don't have that. You can just go on the website and you don't need an account or anything like that. The only data that we capture is the time that you visit a page and your IP address. So it's kind of a unique identifier, but it doesn't tell you who it is. And households can have the same IP address. So we call that families. That's how we kind of say. So we had 43,000 families visit the site in that time. We had nearly 6,000. We had nearly 690,000 page views across the whole site. And when you translate those numbers, the one that really kind of is really interesting to me is that works out at about an average of 16 interactions per person or per family. So they're not just coming to the website because it was advertised on Facebook and then clicking off it again. They're actually doing things while they're there. And I think that is the more valuable number to me than 43,000 is that 16. I'm really proud of that. And we were able to, from those IP addresses, you can get a very, very loose location. You couldn't go and find somebody, but you can tell what country they're in. And we have had page views during the pandemic on ZOOdle from every continent in the world except for Antarctica. So if anyone in Antarctica is listening and just wants to click on the website so I can colour that bit on the map, I'd be really grateful.
That's the thing I do with the podcast. I'm like every inhabited continent because I feel like we can't count that one. I've had everyone listen. Someone from every inhabited continent listen, but I'll not judge you for not having that one. Not judge.
There are researchers. They might be interested.
Yeah. Yeah. Learn about some of the animals they might see wandering around. That would be interesting for. They're probably the experts who are finding the data, but they'll be interested to see how it's trickled down to kids.
Yeah, but it was really lovely to see that engagement, and because we don't capture the personal data that I was saying about, we don't specifically know who was looking at it, whether they were people who would normally come to the zoo or whether they were not. But the fact that it was all over the world, obviously there are people that would have viewed it from China that would never have come to Edinburgh Zoo. So we get those views and sort of that engagement. And like I said earlier as well, a lot of our family resources were almost by way of thank you to the community supporting us. And I worked the first evening that we were open in summer. We did a special sort of summer event. And the first evening was for our members only. They got sort of priority on the tickets and they could come along for free. And I was just chatting to some of the members on a lovely summer's evening with, the smell of the barbecue in the background. And I finished chatting and I said, oh, if you go up here, you can see our chimpanzees. And they went, oh, you've got chimpanzees. And I said, yeah, did you not know this? And they're like, no, we live in Birmingham. We bought membership so that the zoo wouldn't close, and we've come up to use it for the first time ever. And I'm not saying that they use ZOOdle, but just the fact that the whole thing has built this community is really lovely.
That's fantastic. The listeners can't hear me smiling. They probably can. They can hear the skin on my face just stretching with how wide I'm. That's really encouraging. Because I remember at the time there was all these posts online and all of these kind of campaigns of like, we're still here. Like, you might not be able to come, but we are still here and we're still doing all of the work. And I think, it's really encouraging that you were able to kind of, give back in a way and kind of still, it's great, like really, really good. And I think, yeah, it's not, it's a time I can't say I've thought about much recently because I've tried, but there was that kind of post-pandemic feeling of being able to go back to a zoo and see all these things in real life again, and like it, yeah, really encouraging, really nice. And I can't believe someone would come all the way from, like, that's mad. I do like the, like, it's very encouraging, but yeah, mad.
Yeah.
I mean, I say that would also be me. I would be. I've driven to Chester for 2 days just to go to the zoo. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, and yeah, around it's, I always think as well, it's nice when you create something, and I've experienced this with the podcast, when you see another country or another place kind of tick off, it's like, oh, what I've done is getting out there. And also with the fact that people are engaging, it's not like a, oh, they've looked at something for 15 seconds and then gone again because they're not that in, like, it's all so nice to hear and so good to, yeah, it's nice to hear about positive conservation stories. I'm very glad, like, it's a good one. That's a nice, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah, we do. If nothing else, we are positive.
Yes, perfect. That's, yeah. I feel like before I just make you feel really awkward by complimenting how good the site is, yeah, we'll look back to it at the end. But like, people should definitely go and have a look at ZOOdle. And I guess to tempt them to go if they haven't already, what kind of stuff would you like to see on ZOOdle in the future? You've already got a wealth of resources on there, and I guess now you're integrating the learning technology in more places in the zoo. So maybe this isn't just relevant to the website, but like, where would you like to see learning technology type things go in the future in the zoo? Or the
Yes, so I've made some notes of what I'd like to see ZOOdle in the future. Now you've given me learning technology free rein, so I might go off on one. But in terms of ZOOdle, to start with at least, we're really keen on just getting more content up there, mostly for free. I'm quite an advocate for sort of open resources, free education online. And we have, all we did really in the pandemic was pick the animals that people were already interested in, that they knew about and wanted to know more about, like the penguins and the pandas and the big cats. So it would be really, really nice to highlight more animals that we don't have any content about, that people can then go and learn things about. We did one little course which we called Zoo Into, and we had all of our staff at the time make a 2-minute video about their favourite animal. And because we work in zoos, some of the favourite animals are quite obscure. I mean, I did the tapir. I think that's your favourite as well, isn't
yep.
it?
That's the one.
And I absolutely loved that because it was really sweet to kind of get that personality of everyone in the team out there as well, but also to highlight some of the lesser known animals. So that would be a really nice goal. We're also looking to take ZOOdle into sort of more content for adults. So courses that people can do that maybe they'd get a certificate or something out of at the end, that they can actually, like, have achieved something. I mean, obviously you achieve something if you're playing a game, but something more formal education, I think. And we are starting to have a look at how we can do virtual placements with students as well. So we used to have like education students coming in and learning how we do things, and then maybe teaching a few sessions themselves before they go back to finish their teaching degrees or whatever it was at uni. And so we're looking at how we can do that virtually, and so that we're hopefully having some students that can actually create courses on ZOOdle themselves with some guidance, but without our full input, which would be really exciting. And partnerships in general, I think. So we've got the students, but I'm really keen to sort of start working with other people. We were actually having discussions about with other zoos in Scotland about maybe working together on something on our platform, because we have this resource which hardly any other zoos in the world actually have anything like ZOOdle. But because we've already got it, then why not just open it up? And the more content that we have, and the more that we work together, I think the more valuable it will be for the people using it. And then I think one final thing for ZOOdle in the future, which is just a little bee in my bonnet at the moment, really, because it just occurred to me the other day, is I would really like to look into the carbon footprint of the website, because Moodle isn't the most, because it's a content management system, it's got all these databases and things in the background. It's not necessarily the most energy efficient website out there, but there are lots of different things that we can do to make it a little bit better, like hosting all of our videos on YouTube, making sure our images are as small as possible, and things like that, because we're out here as a conservation charity, so I would like to kind of walk my walk, talk the talk, whatever the phrase is. I'd like to do it right.
Yes, it's something that actually, it's strange that you've had this realization recently, because it's something I hadn't thought about until I received an email from someone one day that at the bottom that just said, kind of in the underneath the signature, the automatic signature, it said, really think about if you need to reply to this email, because even emails have a carbon impact. And it's something that I had never even, because you think of it like just quickly sending a text to someone or quickly do, it's something that's so integrated in our lives, you wouldn't even stop to think about it. And it's not something that's brought up because it's usually food consumption or where they make the food or kind of how power is generated, that's where we think about these kind of things. So that's really, really interesting that really, really interesting that you've thought about that.
Yeah,
um
yeah, it's yeah, like I said, it's really new, but yeah, it's just something that was currently on my mind, so I thought I'd bring it up.
yeah.
Um, and I guess in terms of learning technology in general, taking it
Mhm.
forward, that really relies on being sort of allowed back, face to face, closer to classes and things like that. But we are hopefully working on a program to do sort of digital or virtual outreach with schools. So, like, my dream, I'm not saying that this will happen, but my dream is to have sort of suites of VR headsets that we can take out to, the remote islands and like schools that would never be able to come to the zoo, and take the zoo to them. That would be amazing.
That would be, yeah. I always find I do the same thing in that I spend money I don't have in my mind, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this would be so great. Like every time I walk around the zoo, I'm like, if I was in charge, I'd put this here and I'd do this, and I'd have one of these massive expensive bits of technology right here. And then you go, Jack, it's a charity. No, you can't. Don't demand these things. So no, it makes it. But I think that's a really good idea and something that is actually quite manageable, especially if you've got all the 3D photography and stuff that you've done for the kind of panda enclosure and the meerkats that I mentioned before, like all sorts of stuff that you can kind of then take. That's really interesting. Yeah. Really, really. I'm trying to get. You said so many good things there. I'm now going back in my mind and being like, I have so many questions about things. But yes, and I should also like, I should have also mentioned at the start to you, this is not just a fact finding mission for me to steal things for the botanics. I was genuinely interested in all these things.
But when you see that the botanics have a whole suite of family resources in a few years, you know where the idea came from. Just saying.
Yep. We can't do ZOOdle because what would you use for like Boodle doesn't work as well. Like it just
Oh
isn't the same.
no.
Botanics, Ploodle, like plant moodle, it doesn't work as well. So
I
we'll
do
have
like Cloodle.
I mean, now that I've said it, I'm kind of like, Ploodle, yeah. But no, what was the
It's
thing that you
growing on
mentioned?
you.
Oh, I did enjoy actually. One of the things you mentioned was the kind of the good thing about Zoodle. This has reminded me going off on my puns. As Zoodle, because it is not exclusively Edinburgh Zoodle or Highland Wildlife Park Zoodle. I like the idea of the network of reaching out to other zoos and kind of potentially putting resources from other places on there as well, because it isn't exclusive. It can be home to all sorts of interesting things.
Yeah, I mean,
So
a few
that's
years ago, it was kind of maybe a little bit of a proof of concept of this idea, I guess.
mhm,
Before it was Zoodle on the sort of older site that I mentioned, we did have a course about polar bears, because down in Plymouth, coincidentally, it wasn't anything to do with the fact that I used to live there, but they had a whole trail of polar bear sculptures.
mhm,
So we worked with the National Marine Aquarium down there, to give that sort of educational element to the sculpture trail. So people would go and find the polar bears, and then they could learn about, the polar bears at the top of the country
mhm.
from where they're seeing them at the bottom of the country. And it was a lovely little course. Not hugely used, but I'm still proud of it.
Mhm. That's always the ones you're most proudest of are probably the ones that like kind of fly under the radar. But bring it, you can
Yeah,
revamp it, bring it back for Victoria and Arctos and Walker and the new one who is
the
yet
new
to
one.
be. I'm sure there will be a poll at some point soon for us all to vote on. But yes, and the new one, polar bear up there. You can maybe revamp that one or bring it back. But yeah, I like the idea of. I think collaboration is key in all of these things, and especially after the last couple of years, where zoos and things have kind of had a rocky time and being closed and open and closed and open and all these sorts of things. It's a really really good idea to kind of band together.
Yeah.
Um, something else you mentioned, and now we're kind of moving perhaps to the first part of the questions I'd written down were all very Zoodle learning technology related. But I think while I have another RZS zoo person here. And I think I'm going to start asking this question to kind of anyone who I interview who works in a zoo, because I think it's very important to, as you mentioned previously, highlight things that aren't the kind of banner animals maybe that always get the attention. What would be your so the I'm rambling, but the question is the question is, what is your underrepresented or underappreciated RZSS, Highland Wildlife Park, or Edinburgh Zoo animal that maybe the visitors don't always come to see, but you really like to make them look at and kind of want to highlight more? What's that for
Yeah.
you?
So if you'd asked me a few months ago, it definitely would have been the tapir, but
Mm-hmm.
our lovely Mowgli left us for pastures new not that long ago.
Mm-hmm.
So he looks so happy in his new home though, so it's
That
all okay.
video of him, go on the RZSS or Edinburgh Zoo website or Facebook and look at the video of it's so cute. I loved it.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry,
It
but
makes
yeah,
it okay. It makes it okay.
it makes it harder for me because I'm like, just look at him. He's so happy. No, I miss him. But no,
Our boy's
okay.
all grown up.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah, so I was thinking about this, and I'm going to choose an odd one, if I may.
You're on a
Because,
show called Pangolin. It has
well,
to be odd.
it's
It
not an
has
odd
to be.
animal. It's just an odd choice for your question.
Okay.
I'm going to say the penguin, and I know a lot of people come to the zoo to see penguins, and it's our
Okay.
logo. But I feel like they're just like cute, silly birds that waddle around, and I don't feel like that people like necessarily appreciate actually how amazing they are. But also, I don't think an awful lot of people will know the conservation work that we're involved in to help look after them in the wild, because they come to see the cute penguins. So they won't know the work that we do with the northern rockhoppers out in Tristan da Cunha, to help protect those populations of penguins in the wild, and that of all the money that people are paying to come to the zoo to see the pretty penguins actually goes to protecting these animals out there as well. So I know it's kind of like the most obvious animal,
It's
but
the
it's the
logo,
one that
but
I
it's
really
fine.
wanted to say about. And also, I can talk about penguins for hours. But I think an animal, if you're coming to Edinburgh Zoo and you want to see an animal that I think is probably underappreciated by the visitors, I would highlight our gibbons. They're kind of a quarter of the way up the hill, and they're on the way to hippos and sun bears and the exciting animals. I don't know, but I just think because my office is in the zoo, and so I'm walking in at 10 to 9, 5 to 9 in the mornings, and you can hear them, and the gibbons actually they sing. And it's just the most magical thing to walk into work and hear the gibbons singing. And I guess for your listeners that might not know about Gibbons' song, they sing to basically to keep their family together. They all when the males are kind of old enough to leave their families, they start singing a song, and they go off into the forests and they sing their song until a female just like joins in, and that becomes their family song, and their young will sing the song, and they'll all sing it together. And it's kind of a bit of a territory thing, but it's a family bonding thing, and it is just kind of haunting and magical to walk into work in the morning with that.
I think I've tried to capture that on video a few times. So if I have an audio clip, I will insert it here, because it's like one of those things that I'll pull into the car park, I'll be getting my bag and things ready to go in, and then it's not until you open the car and you open the car door in the center of a city and you think, where have I stopped? Where am I? Because you hear this fantastic, and they're like, it's not like beautiful, quiet singing like some animals might kind of twitter away to themselves. It's loud and it's fantastic. It's yeah. And again, for conservation messages, for kind of I always with the summer school, it was I loved taking the kids to go and look at them, because I think they were just fantastic. I think, and they're a good example of an ape. I think that doesn't necessarily, whenever someone says ape, you think kind of orangutans or
Yeah,
gorillas or
yeah,
kind of the great apes, not necessarily the little gibbons, which are fantastic. So that's a nice one. I'm glad you highlighted that one. That's a good one.
Thank you.
This and the penguins. Oh, and we'll not forget the penguins. I would put an audio clip of the penguins in, but it wouldn't be as pleasant. It would just be kind of yes, loud chattering and squawking, which maybe doesn't work as well over audio.
They say you've worked in the zoo too long if you can't smell the penguins anymore. That's the sign.
That's the good thing about only doing weekend work every so often is I still come in and I'm like, oh, nope, that's a penguin. That's a penguin. Yep. But yeah, that's yeah. I guess I did have I was going to kind of start wrapping up, but I kind of thought of one kind of more question I'd like to ask about RZSS and kind of the zoo and working in the zoo. And I think a lot of people have this, is they kind of will have those magical moments in a zoo, which are once in a lifetime type things. And I wanted to ask, what was your kind of happiest when you're in the zoo or the Highland Wildlife Park? And it maybe not Edinburgh, but you're probably biased, so it probably will be in Edinburgh. But what is your kind of happiest magical memory or moment that you've had in the zoo? What's the one that comes to mind?
Oh, can I have one for each site?
Yes. Okay. That's we can't just play favourites. One for each. Yep.
Well, no, I think my favourite would be the Highland Wildlife Park. So it was my first week working for our ZSS, and it was the Thursday. I don't know why that's in my head, but on the Thursday, a colleague was going up to the park for work, and my boss basically said, hop in the car and just get to know the place. Basically, I was given a day paid to go around the Highland Wildlife Park as a tourist, and it was fantastic. And we got there ridiculously early. It was probably half past 9 or something, which meant we'd left Edinburgh at scary o'clock. And we got there about sort of 9:30 in the morning. The park didn't open until 10. The sun was just like, it was daylight, but it was like that pinky kind of morning light, you know. And I got out of the car and my colleague went off to work, and I was like, okay, so where do I go? And I walked just out of the car park and just slightly up the hill to the Arctic fox enclosure. And our Arctic fox, I think the one that we had at the time when I started was had sort of vision impairment or something like that. It was I think it was sort of a little bit short-sighted or something. And he was just sat like right up against the fence. And this was before we had the meter standoff, which has just been put in. And he was sat right up against the fence. And so I just sat down the other side of the fence, and we sat there for about 45 minutes just watching the sunrise. And he was just kind of getting used to things because, you know, he couldn't see it quite so clearly. So just getting used to the sunrise and things like that. And I just sat with him, and it was just magical. I didn't do anything. I don't think I even took a photo.
That's fantastic, and I think that's those when you have that kind of one-on-one moment with something, like I would have said, if I was going to answer that question, mine was very similar. Mine would be very similar. In the first day I was working of the summer school, I'd arrived early, and I went to see the rhinos, which are right next to the education building, and both Khabib and Sanjay ran up and were like, oh, hello, there's a person. And it's those moments of like that spiritual connection you feel in a second of like, the Highland Wildlife Park at that time of day is cracking anyway, never mind never mind when you've got a fox friend sat next to you as well. That's fantastic.
It really was a fantastic day. But I think the rhino would be my Edinburgh choice. So where my office is in the zoo, we've got this lovely sort of rock wall, which is kind of a bit of a feature, and everyone always thinks that I've got a fake background on Zoom because it's so pretty. But the other side of the rock wall is the rhino's heated pool. So whenever they're in there, our office stinks. I mean, it's a silly complaint when you're used to working in a university. It's okay, I don't mind it, but it really does smell. And then one day we had the keepers were looking for volunteers to go and help a new keeper who was training to do the magic moment with the rhinos because she was new, and so I was just like, okay, I'm free, I can do that. And so obviously I'd spent, you know, three and a bit years working next door and smelling them, and I see them on my way in and out of work, but actually getting to sort of go like up close to them and feed them, and you get to kind of like stroke the top lip, and it was really magical. Really is a magical moment. Do recommend.
That's some nice promo there for something you're probably they're not going to give you a bonus for promoting it, but it was a good promotion of like, go to the zoo's website now and book your own magic moment. Like that's but But no, that's okay. Now my non-magic moment where I just happened to walk past and they came up. That's less special. I need
Oh,
to
I'm so
I need to
sorry.
go and do my. Well, I didn't have food. They came up to me without any temptation. They just.
That's true. I had bribery. Yeah.
um, no, that's fantastic. That is yes. I think a perfect, nice, lovely story to kind of start wrapping up on. I guess my final two questions for everyone are always the same. They're always kind of promo yourself is the last one. But before we get to that one, I want to know what would your one piece of advice or kind of what if someone's at home listening to this and thinking, I want to do something now for conservation, what would your piece of advice be?
Yes. I think my piece of advice is do something. That
Mhm.
small things make big changes. So if you've got a little bit of garden space, then plant something that would be helpful for the pollinators. Meat-free Mondays, they're all kind of small, achievable things that people can do, and
Mhm.
sometimes they feel a bit small, and you see on the news all of the kind of sad stories, and you feel like you're not making a difference. But every single little thing does make a difference. And just to go back to kind of my work as well, I guess, is even just kind of finding out more information. Like, you've been to the zoo and you've sat with an Arctic fox and you've had that connection. If you go online, on other websites are available, but if you go online and you learn more about these animals and sort of what's happening to them in the wild, and because you had that connection with them, even just telling other people these facts and spreading the knowledge, each tiny little thing we do can make a big difference in the end.
That's yes, I think so. That's a perfect one, and especially when it's something like yes, going on and learning and doing these things and doing these and it's all a nice little kind of thing you can do, and it's one of those bits of advice where it sounds so silly to just say to people do something, but just doing a little thing always kind of helps, and
Yeah,
yeah,
something is better than nothing always, 100%.
always. Yes. Yes. You're always better. Yeah. I like that. I like yes. Um and yes, I suppose the last question, as always, is if people want to learn more about Zoodle or anything we've talked about today, where are the best places for them to go? What are the kind of resources they should look at?
Yeah, so please do feel free to go and explore Zoodle. The web address is learning.rzss.org.uk.
Mhm.
Please have a look. Like I said, 95% of the resources on there are completely free. You don't need an account. We're not collecting your personal data in sacrifice for your knowledge. And hopefully you can just have a little bit of a play and learn some new fun things. And Edinburgh Zoo and Highland Wildlife Park, we're reopened now. We're thrilled to have people back. Do come along if you're nearby, and wave at me in the window next door to the rhinos.
You're gonna have fans coming up and banging on the glass, giving you a heart attack when they come up and it's like, "Hello." No, that's perfect.
I
And
mean,
yeah,
if it happened, I would be delighted.
Ah, well, yes, that kind of on that note, we should wrap up before we encourage anyone else to come and give you a fright. That's, but yes, thank you so much for joining me today. That kind of brings us to the end of our show. Thank you. Yes, thank you so much for all of your stories, insights. It's always nice when I kind of know, I guess, because we can have a little bit more of a laugh and a joke, which is always yes, it's always a nice one to record. So thank you very very much.
Oh, thank you so
Um,
much for having me. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. I will pop all of the links that we've discussed in the description for this show. So if anyone's interested, you can check everything out in the description. Down there, I'll also place all of our social media links so you can follow us on there. You can also, of course, subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, we're on Google Podcasts. We're on all sorts of different platforms. So make sure to subscribe to us on there. Social media, we're on there. We're everywhere. Follow us everywhere. This is the first time, just to be honest with everyone listening, this is the first time I'm doing this with a guest present. So if I've forgotten something, you've listened to enough episodes now to know where everything is.
I'm
But
definitely not giggling in the background. It's fine.
but yes, thank you all so much for listening. And yes, until next time, thank you, Lizzie. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and goodbye.